Well, I got notice this week that my high school graduating class is planning our 45th year reunion, which I was looking forward to. I've been looking forward to this for a long time, but now I'm not. Due to the confirmed presence of a narcissistic man who spent our 12 years together bullying our most vulnerable classmates and has continued to do so, except now he does it on Facebook. I took an online test this week to see when I would die. I do this every year just so I'm not caught off guard. And according to the test, I have only 11 years and 240 days left to live, and I don't want to spend even 1 minute of it with this man. I don't wish him ill, I don't wish anyone ill, but I have learned that Christian charity doesn't require me to pretend their cruelty is something I should overlook. So this man, when we were kids, here's the kind of bully he was. He had this unerring knack for identifying and zeroing in on the most vulnerable among us. Those kids who had no way of protecting themselves, the socially awkward and poor children, and he would make their lives a living hell. If you were popular or came from a wealthy family, he wanted to be your best friend. But if you weren't, you became his target. He would come after you. On top of that, he's very religious and nationalistic. So when he treats others poorly, he justifies it by quoting the Bible or superimposing his comments over an image of the American flag, as if all good Americans should agree with him. We've spent the past 2 months surveying our Quaker history, noting those practices of early friends that left us scratching our heads, wondering what in the world they were thinking. A little detour last week when we were viewing the old meeting house and Chris Gautier had pulled off a trim piece. It revealed the original wallpaper that had been put there in the early 1890s. And Sandy Chenoweth this week said to the rest of us, Phil should preach another sermon on what in the world were we thinking? Classic. So we've been talking about those things of early friends that just made us wonder what in the world were we up to. And since I've been doing that and spending time on that, I would be remiss not to also identify those practices that early friends got right. The things they were absolutely spot on about. And so we'll be calling this series, Things We Got Just Right. One of the things we got just right was our contempt of privilege. In a socially stratified culture, when so many people had a kind word for the rich and a hard word for the poor, early friends refused to tip the hat, rejecting the flattery of honorifics, titles, and privilege. Long before modern day friends began paying attention to our pronouns, long before we respected the right of people to tell us the gender they believed themselves to be, even if we didn't understand it, because we knew the first human right is the right to define who we are. Long before any of that, Quakers used pronouns to express their belief in human equality. Those higher in rank were addressed as you, while those lower in rank were addressed as thee. Quakers rejected those social distinctions, believing the king's servant was entitled to the same respect as the king. so-called everyone they met, thee. This, as you might imagine, pleased the servant while infuriating the king. Just one of the reasons early friends suffered such persecution. We believed someone's worth and value did not derive from their social status, did not derive from their station at birth or their personal accomplishments or their wealth, but rather someone's worth and value derived from the light of God within them, no more or less than in anyone else. A little linguistic trivia, in case you're ever on Jeopardy. While the you, thee distinction is no longer present in the English language, variations of it remain in other languages, most notably, and Sandra, if I'm wrong, just tell me privately later, most notably Spanish, where the word tú is used when talking informally with your social peers, and the word usted is used in more formal settings. Is that right? She's clapping. Yay. Yes. Good. And her granddaughter, yes, which means her granddaughter is, well, smarter than I am, but we all knew that. Long before we developed a dress code reflecting our commitment to simplicity. Long before we developed a system of worship reflecting our commitment to the priesthood of all believers. Long before any of those things, we developed a language reflecting our commitment to human equality. We rejected the use of titles, no sir this or madam that, no your honor this or your excellency that. We addressed all people, no matter their rank or status, by their first names, and never by their rank or title. Even Quaker children were instructed to address their elders by their first names. If you're new to Quakerism and wonder why I'm not called Pastor Phil or Reverend Gulley, that is why. Because titles have a way of conveying and bestowing privilege, and we do not want a privileged class within Quakerism. Now, there are two ways to create equality. We can put down those who are at the top of society, or we can raise up those who are at the bottom. Actually, there's a third way, and I think this third way is the heart of Quakerism. We can treat each person with the same measure of dignity and respect. We can endeavor to see the divine light in each person, which is truly the tide that allows all boats to float side by side. We must be conscious of how easily we are enchanted by those with wealth and fame, how naturally we accommodate them while ostracizing and even condemning those of low estate. That is especially crucial today in this second American Gilded Age, where those with wealth and fame play an oversized role in our culture and communities. Whenever that happens, whenever we permit that to happen, we carve up the globe, placing some nations at the top and others at the bottom. We even have a new word for those countries, shithole countries. How did it get to that? I remember when Americans sent people to those countries to help them. remember what we said about the power of words and our habit of using kind words for the rich and hard words for the poor? Do you doubt for a moment that if the Swiss and the Swedes and the Norwegians were flooding across our borders, we would not be calling it an invasion or a crisis, that we would instead ask the welcome wagon to set up booths every half mile along the border, manned by suburban women with cakes and pies, discount coupons to local businesses, and school information for the kiddos. I try always, as a Quaker, to treat everyone I meet with kindness, to extend compassion to all people. But I cannot abide those who mistreat the most vulnerable among us, nor can I abide the silence that often accompanies such maltreatment. As Quakers, our goal is the same as that of our ancestors: to work for a world in which all people everywhere are valued, all are respected, all are invited to sit at God's great banquet, to take their place not beneath us nor below us, but beside us as our friends.